You're listening to Let's Figure It Out by Ad Valorem, where we break down business, finance, and tax without the fluff.
From side hustles to audits, we keep it practical, insightful, and even a little bit of fun.
Let's get into it.
Welcome back to Let's Figure It Out. Today, we're going to be talking all things payroll. Payroll, it sounds simple. Run the payroll, pay your staff, and you're done. But in reality, mistakes happen. Some of them can cost businesses a lot of money, cause problems with HMRC, and more importantly, cause problems with staff. Today, we have two members of the Adval payroll team joining us, Kemi and Julia. Hello, ladies.
Hello. Hello.
So, let's jump right in and discuss all things payroll. First and foremost, what is one of the weirdest things that you've experienced in payroll?
Oh, there's quite a few, isn't there?
There
Karen?
is.
So, okay. Do you want to go first or shall I?
You can
Okay.
go first.
I think one of the most common ones that we have, which is I always find a little bit weird, is the fact that you'll have an employer ring up and say, we got a new employee starting, I'll send you the information. The information comes through with just a name and a salary, and that's it.
No
That's
surname,
no
no
surname,
emails.
no information whatsoever. So we
Okay.
have that quite a lot,
We do.
which is quite weird,
Yeah.
isn't it? Really?
And sometimes we have the same employer
Yeah.
doing the same thing every single month. They would just send
Yeah.
the name and, just one detail, just the full name.
And
then,
nothing else.
nothing else. So, so you repeat yourself the same way. Another thing, actually, I had a client thought we've actually got access to an individual's HMRC account. So we can just go, so the employee owes them money, and they thought we can just access their HMRC account and get money from there.
Money
So,
they owe the company.
like their individual HMRC account, because the person has gone on maternity leave and been paid. So the person is not eligible for maternity through the company. So when you're not eligible through the company, you can actually get maternity allowance from HMRC, from the
Right.
government. So, but because the employee owes them money, they thought, oh, you should be able to gain access to their, government accounts and
Just take it.
just take money from
Right.
there, which we've never experienced before. So we had to ask again, are you sure? Just to make sure, we know what this client
Yeah.
is asking us to do, So
That's the client one, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah.
I've had an employee that's actually phoned up really uptight because they've paid tax, and they said they shouldn't pay tax because although they live here, they weren't born here.
You guys have the patience of saints.
On the phone, we do.
So how many clients do you think that you guys currently facilitate per month for employee? If you're just going to give a...
How many clients?
Yeah, ballpark
He's in
figure.
excess of
400?
400, yeah.
400.
Okay, and how many is on the payroll team that's running that with you at the minute?
5.
Nice, okay. So, ladies, talk to me a little bit around how you started out in payroll.
Oh, well, I started out by mistake. I was in another role and there was a client that had a payroll and I was asked whether I would like to do it. And so that's how I started, and that must have been, crikey, probably going on for 18 years now. Long
Kemi.
time.
Oh, 18 years. So that's
18
about the
years.
same time, really.
Yeah.
So I started with Ad Valorem. I was doing accounts. So we had, at the time, this was back 2007. So at the time, only got like very little payroll. So I do compliance. So I was doing that for a while, then tax. And then I think it was I can't remember, probably 8 years ago, we now had another firm of accountant that wanted to outsource their payroll. So by outsourcing their payroll meant, my time is occupied. And so in the last 7 to 8 years, I specialize in payroll.
And now you head up the team.
Sorry, and now we've got a team.
Yeah.
So which was brilliant, which is brilliant, yeah.
Let's talk about what can go wrong in payroll. So let's start with the basics. What are the most common payroll mistakes that you see in small and medium businesses?
So new employees filling out starter checklist is very important. They've got to make sure the declaration part is actually completed. This is either your first job since April, this is your second job or you've had a job before, or this is your second job but you're still working somewhere else.
Yeah, and I think with situations like that, the benefit of just taking the time to fill out those new starter forms correctly is actually going to save you time later in the year. Because if you pay tax incorrectly, a lot of people get to the end of the year and they hope they get that brown envelope through the door to say they're getting a tax rebate. There is nothing worse than being told you owe money.
Yeah.
And the thing is, if you do fill it out incorrectly, it has huge implications.
It does.
It really does.
I love how serious you got then.
Oh,
it has huge.
It does. It has.
The thing is, it doesn't wait till end of the year anymore. If you fill it out incorrectly, because we submit it through HMRC, it's real time.
Okay.
So you have people that will submit it like that, and they will get a revised tax code.
And also, when you're budgeting as an individual, as you get your salary, if you then have a month where you have a larger outgoing on tax, it could completely throw out your personal budget and your affordability for that month.
Completely.
Okay.
So completing it very, is actually very important.
I think another common mistake that a lot of employers make is that they forget to tell you if someone's left. So you can continue to pay someone and through the payroll, and they've completely forgot to tell you.
And what's the rules around that in terms of clawing that back as an employer?
They don't necessarily. The problem is the employers don't necessarily pay that employee. They just don't tell payroll. So it's going through the system, the payroll system,
national insurance
and then
contribution.
three or 4 months later, they will let you know that they've actually left.
How would you then backdate that?
We have to restore that particular employee. We have to do what we call a rollback to take that employee back to when they did leave and then do all the adjustments to HMRC.
Out of interest, if that employee then goes on to their new employment, does that then cause issues with their tax code at their new employment? Because assuming it's second income.
Yes, it could do, because obviously if we weren't told, they wouldn't have had a P45. And without a P45, the new employer hasn't got the year-to-date figures. So they would then complete a starter checklist. Okay. And it could mean that there's a double taxation.
Yeah. And that can also affect things like maternity pay, can't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What HMRC would do, because if you haven't actually said you've left, HMRC will send a revised tax code to the new employer, which splits that tax code, because HMRC will assume that employee is working 2 jobs.
Yeah, absolutely.
So which will cause a problem, for that employee. And if that employee is not aware, so to speak, it's not, didn't understand what it is. If the employee is actually very particular about what is on their payslip, they will, look into it. But if they're not aware of what tax code means or not able to read their payslip, they could go on for a longer time. Yeah. It's in effect overpaying tax. Which
you will get back at some point, but it's just the way.
It's just the time process.
No, absolutely.
And that is, the problem.
Okay. So I guess on that, in terms of employees, is there anything that employees can do to encourage employers to obviously get them off the payroll? I guess it would just involve a phone call.
I think most the majority of employees would ask for P45 anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That seems to be the normal procedure.
I feel like you guys get a lot of people from AdVal coming to you saying, what does this tax code mean? Yeah. Sorry about
absolutely.
that.
Yeah, no, it's fine, but it's very important for employees to ask.
Yeah.
Some employees don't ask, and the reason they won't even ask is because when they go to a new job, they ask them, "Do you have P45?" No. Fill out a new starter checklist, and because they filled out the new starter checklist, they're not thinking, "Oh, they need to do something else." And that is always the problem. And also, it's better for the employee to be able to read their payslip and understand what is on their payslip.
The amount of people
And
that
ask
don't look
questions.
No, they just trust the employer.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
If they're on at the end of the day, the onus is on the employee to make sure that their tax code is correct. And unfortunately, we can't do anything about that, because if we get a change of tax code, we are just given the code. You're not actually given the breakdown of how that code is made up.
That's right.
Really, the employee would then need to ring HMRC if they don't believe it to be correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think another thing, payroll is one of those services that I think not everybody sees the value in paying for the better service as such. So a lot of people now look at bureau functions that are offshore as a means to running their payroll every month. I think from my experience and working with you guys is one of the big things around paying for the more personable approach around payroll is when it does go wrong, you've got someone on the end of the phone that can help you. There is nothing worse than an employer having issues with the payroll at the end of the month, it upsetting the staff and not being able to get an answer quickly.
Correct.
And I mean, you know, there's a day a month that's normally your day off that you'll still come in to run payroll for a certain client.
Right.
And
yes, I do, because they've got a quick turnaround, and it depends on when that falls during the month. So yes, absolutely, we do try and go over and above for our clients. If there's something that needs doing, we do try to accommodate that.
And I think a lot of our clients see that now as well. And I think we've had clients that have had offshore payroll where they've had it run by a company abroad, had bad experience, and they've come to us and they've been happy to pay a little bit more for the more personable service. So
I think you need a human on the end of the phone for when problems
to debunk a lot of the questions.
And to reassure. A lot of the time it is just reassuring clients that don't worry about it, it's not that much of an issue, we can solve it. And if you know, they do need that. They need someone at the end of the phone that can help.
Yeah, and be able to
we
speak.
think that's important, don't we?
That's right, and be able to speak to HMRC as well, because HMRC have a way of talking. When you know what HMRC is going to ask, you have, you're able to answer the questions, because sometimes you get clients when they actually call HMRC, sometimes it takes ages to even get through, which is, 45 to 1 hour, which is normal, but even understanding what HMRC is actually asking is another thing. So you want to make sure you have somebody that is knowledgeable enough to be able to speak to HMRC on your behalf and, help out. It takes the stress of the employers, really.
Yeah, I think a lot of employers are constantly trying to play the game of translating what HMRC are trying to communicate to them. Right. And I think if you've got a trusted payroll provider, you're winning. Let's talk around avoiding penalties and keeping HMRC happy. So what kind of trouble can businesses get into if payroll isn't accurate? And are there any red flags that HMRC look out for?
Yes, there certainly are. I think the main one that we need to always make sure is that the RTIs, which are the full payment submissions, are sent on or before the day.
What does RTI stand for?
RTI is real-time information. So when you process a payroll, the payroll has to be sent to HMRC on time. If it isn't, that could raise a red flag at their end, and it could, if you continue to do that, cause investigations, which obviously we want to avoid.
That's right.
It's also really important that it's sent on time, particularly if you've got employees that are receiving universal credit,
That's right.
because if they receive those late, it can have an impact on what they receive, which
That's
obviously they need to avoid. So really important that payroll is sent on time to HMRC, which is why we try and get the information in as soon as the employers can let us have it.
That's right.
Perfect. So let's just talk a little bit around payroll horror stories. Without naming names, tell us about a payroll issue that went totally sideways and what happened afterwards.
So this horror story was a really sad one, complete miscommunication. But then it's one of those communication that seems really right. You know, so when we request some information from client, it needs to be very clear, you know, that everybody understands. And some information are so clear that even if few people reads it, you will see that this is what this client is asking for.
Which is why we use the checklist, right?
Yeah.
That's right. But in this case, it was completely different. So, you know, we did exactly what the email actually said, which is P45 or this particular segment of employees.
Right.
But it wasn't. So this actually caused problems, which is what we were talking before about employees. It really unsettled the employees because they've now got P45, whereas they haven't left. It wasn't a good experience.
Okay.
It
So
wasn't- yes.
with experiences like that, and obviously there are times where there can be breakdown in communication, and we've just touched on the fact that we've got a checklist to make sure that the communication is kept clear and concise. Are there any other ways that employers can avoid miscommunication around payroll if they're using a third-party provider?
I mean, yes, the thing is with we have phone calls as well. So, but we've also got templates.
Yeah.
So we have our own templates where we prepare and we send to client. The most important thing is being able to use it. You know, so we do create this template, we do send it to client and ask them to use it. Some of them don't want to use it and will rather send emails. So, and that could cause, you know, problems when, you know, you think you've actually got what they're saying, but some clients will say, when I say this, I mean that.
Yeah, and
so
I think
we, you know.
I think it's good that we can adapt to clients.
Yes.
The fact that we can
That's
use
right.
emails to run the payroll, and I
Yeah.
think that's a great level of service. I think one of the main issues is if you've not got a uniform approach to collating the data, it does offer-
cause problem.
I think the key thing here is what the client sends has to be accurate. It has to be, because sometimes in payroll you do need to have a bit of a crystal ball, and sometimes what clients say, they don't actually mean what they say. So you have to try and understand what they really want, and that can be a bit difficult at times.
Okay, perfect. So, tips for getting payroll right. And I think this is a really, really important thing, especially in the current economic market, ensuring that employees are paid on time, correctly, and they're educated on things like tax codes.
That's right.
And pension contributions. I think a lot of employees actually don't take the time to understand, as we said earlier, tax codes primarily, but also what their pension contribution is and what the employer is putting into their pension as well, who the pension's with and things like that.
That's right.
I think the standard pension at the moment is 5% employee, 3% employer, which seems to be the majority of what we do.
A lot of people.
We have some that pay over and above that.
That's right.
But the employee should be notified anyway, if not by the employer, certainly by the pension company. So they should have all the communication to make sure that what they're being deducted is correct. And if they're not sure, again, they can always ring the pension provider.
So let's just talk about what can an employer do to make payroll run smoothly, and what can an employee do their side. So from an employer's point of view, utilising a third party, is that always the best option?
I think it takes the burden and the stress away from the employer, especially when the employer they don't have somebody in-house that can do it. If they got somebody that is knowledgeable about payroll and they've got the right software, they're happy with the admin part. So you've got to have the software to be able to, that is compliant with real-time information. They have understanding of the pension, they know what they want there, and they've got somebody that can do it, that is knowledgeable, So we found some of the clients want to do it themselves.
Yeah.
But they don't have the knowledge of payroll. So they call you, and ask, and how do I do this? And how do I do that? And which is a thing. We can do the training. So that is not an issue. We can actually train if they want to do it themselves. But if they don't have that resources, to do it in-house, it's better to outsource it.
Yeah, and I think, as an employer, you've got to take on, like you said, the burden of implementing the software.
That's right.
The burden of communication with HMRC, and also, if you're having a busy time in the month, the payroll has to be done. It completely helps for any anomalies that might happen within the business.
It actually does. So let me add to that. We've had a client that actually they do their payroll themselves. They believe they can do it, to cut costs of outsourcing, which is fine. But then they now forgot to process the payroll. And they forgot to, because when you pay your staff, they just pay the staff, and it's very important to issue pay slips to the employees. If you don't, that is actually against government rules. So if they don't, they've got to provide pay slips. But some employers will just pay because it's standard and they just pay, but they forgot to do RTI, which caused problem because at the end of the new year, tax year, they now wanted to use the system, but they've got penalty because they didn't close it, they didn't do the monthly, so it caused a lot of problems. So if you're not, if you don't know what you're doing, outsource.
Leave it to someone who does.
That's it.
Okay, and then let's talk around for employees. Obviously, if the payroll's wrong, employees are not going to be happy. But from an employee point of view, just being prepared to be on a payroll, I think we can agree, sort out your tax code and make sure you know what that is and make sure you know what it means. So does it mean that you've got a benefit in kind? Does it mean that there's a salary sacrifice being implemented? Or does it just mean that part of your allowance is being utilised elsewhere? Make sure you know what each code means. And also be wary of when the payroll is going to be run. So a lot of people, I've previously had it where I've had roles where we got paid every 4 weeks, which when you're trying to manage your personal finances and set up direct debits and things like that, sometimes things can fall out of the time frames. So I think knowing when the payroll is going to be run, knowing what to expect.
That's right.
And if it's not run, you then know who to go to and ask the questions.
That's right. It's right at the beginning when you start your job, you start your employment. You've got your contract in there. They would say whether it's going to be monthly, it's going to be weekly, or it's going to be not fortnightly or weekly. So you already know all those questions, all those things. You speak to your HR, you know when your payday is going to be. Then also be aware when you first get your payslip, make sure you can interpret your payslip. You know what your tax code stands for. The standard tax code at the moment is 1257L. That is the standard for this tax year of 2026, 25 to 26. Sorry,
15 to 16.
I'm going to 2056. No, way back. So this tax year is 2025 to 26. So, and the standard tax code is 1257L. If your tax code is below that or above, question it. see why you've actually got this tax code. If you've got benefits, it depends, because you may have benefit in kind like car or medical, and that may not affect your tax code, and that's because of payrolling. So if the company that you work for register with HMRC with payrolling, then the tax for your benefits, your car or your medical will go through the payroll system. So with that, the tax code would not be affected. But if the company is not registered for payrolling, then your tax code will be adjusted. And it's just being able to know that you're taxed correctly, because the last thing you want is to underpay tax.
So can you just give us a brief understanding of what payrolling is?
Yes. So with payrolling, the government actually introduced this a while back, and it's before you have your car benefit, like I mentioned, you've got medical insurance, all these different benefits, you have to complete a P11D. So with the P11D, though you're enjoying the benefit now, you end up paying the tax after, because the P11D, the deadline for that is the 6th of July. So you have a way where the tax, you're paying it in arrears, so to speak. Whereas with payrolling, if your company's got to register with HMRC before the 6th of the new tax year. So once it's registered with HMRC, then those benefits doesn't need to go on the P11D.
They would just get taken
They
out
will
of
just
the
take
payslip.
it. Yeah. So they will add that car benefit, that medical insurance. It will be added to the payroll, and then so you'll have your normal tax code 1257L. And then that tax, you will have it real time, rather than going through the P11D. Sorry, there's something else that I wanted to actually mention there. But yes, so we still have that. I think with payrolling, it was meant to be mandatory, where all employers has got to, any benefits like that's got to go through payroll. It was meant to start, become mandatory 2026, but HMRC has pushed that back. So I think it's starting probably 2027, I think at the moment, April 2027, where it becomes mandatory for all employers, to be on this.
Perfect.
So kind of like phasing out P11D, really.
Right, so now we're going to go into a bit of a quickfire round. So payroll, mistake or myth. So what this will be is I'll read out a scenario and you tell me, is this genuine error or a myth?
Okay.
Yep. So not updating tax codes.
Yes, mistake.
That's a mistake.
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, you need to, if you don't update, there is impact, there is, it's very important the tax code is actually being used at the right time.
Perfect.
So that is, so it will be genuine.
Forgetting to auto-enroll new staff into a pension.
Definitely mistake. That's very important, because if you don't, that will have implications for them as well. They have to be, the longest they can stay out of a pension is 3 months, and they should automatically be auto-enrolled.
Yeah, and even with that pension, the thing is you've got to be compliant. If you're new, they've got to know what is happening within the first 6 weeks. So if they're not going to be on payroll for 3 months, like you said, that needs to, a letter needs to have been given within that first 6 weeks. So it's very important. So
Thinking holiday pay isn't required for 0-hour staff.
That is so funny. That is for sure. So holiday is required.
Doesn't
You
matter
accrue
when,
holiday, regardless. So to think a 0-hour contract is not No, that's definitely me.
Thanks very much for joining me today, ladies.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Just to finish off, a couple of questions. What's the one payroll mistake that's easiest to fix but often missed?
Pension, auto-enrolment.
Yeah.
Is very important. Some employers don't believe it's something they've got to do. And it's something that they have to do. It's their responsibility to provide a workplace pension. And it is easy to fix. You know, we can actually, we've got a partnership with IFAs, independent financial advisors that can actually look into each company's employers and provide the best option for them. And this can easily be fixed, but they need to understand that it's not something that can be pushed aside.
It's their responsibility.
It's their responsibility.
And what's the one thing every business should start doing today to improve payroll?
I think employers must send the payroll team accurate information which will enable us to do it smoothly.
Well, thank you again for your time. I've learnt a lot, and any questions we get from viewers, we'll let you guys know.
Okay,
That's
lovely.
brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.